We'll finish this lesson by addressing special challenges faced by both younger and older drivers. Let's look at some harsh facts. Traffic fatalities are the leading cause of death for females aged 15 to 24 in Tennessee, and the second leading cause of death for males in that age range. Traffic fatalities was the leading cause of death for males in Tennessee aged 15 to 24 until recently. But the reason it's still the leading cause of death for 15 to 20-year-old females is cell phone use. We'll talk specifically about cell phone use later in the course. Physical and emotional factors associated with youth, combined with inexperience, make younger drivers far more likely to be in crashes. According to the Safe Road Alliance, about 2 in 5 drivers will have vehicle crashes in their first year of driving. These range from minor one-car collisions, like hitting a road sign, to the more serious possible crashes involving fatalities. Research into the causes of crashes, along with inexperienced drivers, found that these younger drivers were overwhelmingly at fault. This is also true despite the fact that physical coordination and reaction times are generally superior in younger drivers. The Foundation for Highway Safety reports that although 16 to 19-year-olds only make up about 7% of annual miles driven, drivers in this age group are involved in 41% of all crashes and almost 30% of all motor vehicle deaths. As if this isn't horrifying enough, the American Society of Pediatrics reports that in addition to the deaths of teen drivers, more than half of the 8 to 17-year-old children who die in car crashes are killed as passengers of younger drivers, those younger than 20 years of age. These facts should make us take notice and realize that the challenges faced by novice drivers are enormous. There are many theories for the higher number of younger drivers in motor vehicle crashes. Some of it is simply due to lack of experience. Driving involves more than motor skills and reaction time. Most researchers found the ability to recognize hazards and respond effectively to them was far greater in drivers with more experience. Interestingly, studies show that time spent as a passenger watching other drivers didn't add up to experience. It didn't improve ability to see hazards. The only kind of driving experience that worked was time behind the wheel. Younger drivers also face physical challenges. Hormonal changes in younger drivers tend to foster risky behavior, including drunk or drugged driving. Less obvious types of risky behavior that lead to crashes are factors such as not looking thoroughly, driver distractions, or poor judgment on room to pass. Now let's examine the challenges faced by aging drivers. The fact is, older drivers are in some ways safer than any other age group. According to AAA, they're the most likely age group to wear safety belts, observe speed limits, and avoid drinking and driving. AAA adds that most older drivers recognize and avoid situations where their limitations put them at risk. They drive less after dark, during rush hour, and avoid difficult driving situations like busy highways and intersections. But as older drivers age, their vision and hearing gets worse, and they have slower reaction times. But the reason all these problems don't make older drivers far less safe underlies what classes like this one are effective. As a recent study by the Rand Corporation found, one of the main reasons older drivers aren't found to be much riskier drivers is that they change their driving habits to compensate for their diminished competence as drivers. This is despite medical evidence that shows their driving skills do decline with age. There are several reasons why that might be the case. As one researcher put it, driving mostly relies on complex neuropsychological processes, way below conscious awareness or control. These processes become impaired in normal aging and accompanying neuropathy, compromising fitness to drive. To put that in simple English, older brains don't work as well as younger brains. This means poor motor skills, often accompanied by weaker muscles and reduced flexibility. These factors make it harder to do things like grip and turn the steering wheel, or press the accelerator or brake pedal. But one of the greatest challenges faced by older drivers might be that aging makes it less likely to survive a crash. If you look at these charts, you might notice that crashes, injuries, and fatalities all decrease in each decade from the 20s to the 60s, with a slight rise in the 70s, and then a sudden massive increase in fatalities for drivers 80 and older. This chart can make it even more clear. Notice the two bars on the right-hand side, showing a 44% higher risk of dying in a crash for drivers under 25, and a whopping 573% increased chance of dying in a crash for drivers 65 and older. The AAA summarizes it this way: with the exception of teen drivers, seniors have the highest crash death rate per mile driven, even though they drive fewer miles than younger people. So what can be done? When it comes to younger drivers, studies show that hands-on experience is the only way to become a less risky driver. Two tips can help a younger driver get that experience in a way that reduces the risk while they're learning. The first is to have supervision when they drive. As painful as it may be to be a teen, studies show that an experienced driver alongside a new driver decreases risk to similar levels as to having an experienced driver behind the wheel. It may be that the experienced driver sees a hazard where the new driver fails and alerts the driver. It may also be that a driver who's supervised is less likely to break rules and to be more focused on the task when someone's watching. But the second tip is to take the information provided in this class to heart and recognize that inexperience, sleep deprivation, and a greater willingness to take risks are more common in younger drivers, and find ways to counteract those. But what might be done if supervision from an experienced driver isn't available? If you're a novice driver, try to act like an experienced driver is supervising you. Use tools like awareness of following distance, keeping a good space cushion, and scanning as if those skills are the experienced driver supervising you. When an older driver, if there's any doubt they should be driving, have a doctor conduct an evaluation and see if the doctor advises restrictions on driving. Remember, these types of restrictions are voluntary. The Tennessee DMV doesn't have a way for doctors to order cancellation or restriction of driving privileges. If you know an older driver, you shouldn't forget that driving for an older person is the one way that they can maintain their independence, have an enjoyable life, and respond to emergencies. Whenever it can be done safely, it would be a mistake to bar an older person from driving. For an older driver who continues to drive, here are some recommendations from the CDC that will make it safer for you. As much as possible, only drive during daylight and in good weather. Plan your route before you drive. Find the safest route and well-lit streets, intersections with left-turn arrows and easy parking. Leave a large following distance behind the car in front of you. Maintain a moderate rate of speed and avoid unnecessary lane changes. Avoid distractions in your car, such as listening to a loud radio, talking on your cell phone, texting, and eating. Exercise regularly to increase strength and flexibility. Have your eyes checked by an eye doctor at least once a year. And ask your doctor or pharmacist to review the medicines, both prescription and over-the-counter, to reduce side effects from interactions. Finally, the CDC urges older drivers to consider potential alternatives to driving, such as riding with a friend or using public transit. That completes this lesson on the first tool of defensive driving, preparation. After a brief question, we'll move on to step 2 in our look at defensive driving, anticipation.